Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Have you ever caught yourself wondering if the quote-unquote perfect crime is actually a real thing? Today, we're exploring a subject that feels like it was pulled straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster, but every single detail we're about to cover is entirely real. We are looking at the illusion of the perfect crime. We'll be examining criminal masterminds who executed supposedly flawless, highly sophisticated heists, completely outsmarting alarms, bank vaults, and the authorities for years. But as we'll see, the concept of a flawless crime might just be exactly that, an illusion. Okay, let's dive into this right off the bat. What actually separates a brilliant, multi-million-dollar heist from spending the rest of your life behind bars? You might think it's the FBI's high-tech gadgets or some massive shootout, but often it's just a single, microscopic mistake. Human error is the ultimate downfall. Because no matter how meticulously a crime is planned, human nature, the exact same nature that makes us forget our keys or misplace our phones, always leaves a trace. We're going to look at two distinct profiles of masterminds today to see exactly how this happens. Case 1. The Stealth Masters. Picture this. It's 1972 in Laguna Niguel, California. A totally silent, meticulously planned weekend operation has just wrapped up. Monday morning rolls around, and when the bank employees and a vault technician finally manage to pry open their locked vault, it is absolute chaos inside. The total value of cash and valuables stolen from the safe deposit boxes was a staggering $8 million. This wasn't just some minor break-in. To put that into perspective, at the time, this was literally the largest bank burglary in U.S. history. The mechanical genius and sheer preparation of these guys was absolutely phenomenal. First, they disabled the outside audible alarm by injecting it with liquid styrofoam. It hardened up and literally froze the clapper in place. Next, they climb onto the roof, tap into the bank's own electrical power, and saw a massive 4-foot opening. Once they're inside, they don't just smash things up. They delicately clip the wires for the interior silent alarm and solder them together to bypass the whole system. And for the grand finale, to get through 16 inches of steel-reinforced concrete, they drill holes, pack them with dynamite, and place burlap bags over the explosives. This brilliantly muffled the sound and directed the blast precisely inward, right into the vault. As you'll see here, they were ridiculously methodical. They basically treated this bank like their own personal weekend Airbnb. They knew most banks in '72 were closed all weekend, so they likely slipped in Friday night and just hung out until Sunday. They came prepared with acetylene torches to burn right through the steel rebar that the dynamite exposed. They systematically used brute force to crack open 45-8 individual safe deposit boxes, just carefully sorting through the loot. And the most chilling part, they left absolutely zero fingerprints at the crime scene. Not a single one. Total ghosts. The dirty dishwasher clue. Well, as we established earlier, there's really no such thing as a perfect crime. Shifting gears from the gang's genius to the sheer exhausting legwork of the FBI. With literally zero physical evidence at the bank, agents built their case through massive effort. They canvassed every single cab driver at Los Angeles International Airport. And that huge project actually paid off when one driver remembered picking up 5, quote, mean-looking guys who tipped him $100. That clue led agents to an address, and eventually to motel records connecting an Ohio-based gang to a local ex-Marine named Earl Dawson. By flipping Dawson, the FBI set up a daring undercover sting at a local hangout called the Walnut Room Bar. This allowed them to legally eavesdrop on the suspects and even seize the getaway car. Meanwhile, other agents tracked down a condo in Laguna Niguel that the gang had rented as their home base. Naturally, the suspects wiped the entire inside of this place completely clean with cleaning products. They were just as careful here as they were inside that bank vault. But they missed one spot. An evidence tech opened the dishwasher and boom, it was loaded with dirty dishes. Someone forgot to push the on button. And this brilliantly illustrates our whole point today. A highly sophisticated crew capable of bypassing complex alarm systems and blowing through 16 inches of solid steel was ultimately undone by a simple refusal to do their daily chores. Those unwashed dishes were covered in latent fingerprints, definitively matching the suspects. Absolutely wild. This brings us to a really important investigative concept, modus operandi, or MO. It's basically a distinct pattern or method of operation used by a criminal. The FBI in California sent out a teletype detailing this exact Laguna Niguel MO, the styrofoam trick, the rooftop entry, the bypassed wires. That specific pattern allowed investigators all the way in Cleveland, Ohio, to link this crew to 13 similar bank burglaries in their state, which finally led to the capture of the ringleader, Emil Dinzio, and his entire organized crime family. Now, you might be wondering how this compares to other masterminds. Let's draw a stark contrast here. We just looked at the stealth burglars, operating on weekends, avoiding all confrontation, working quietly to steal $8 million. Let's pivot and look at the complete opposite end of the spectrum, a daylight armed robber who relied on extreme intimidation and highly violent tactics and successfully pulled off 56 hits. Enter the Shootist. We are talking about a lone gunman who absolutely terrorized banks across multiple states in the late 80s and 90s. 56. That is the massive scale of his crime spree. To put that into perspective, it is incredibly rare for a single, standalone bank robber to successfully pull off dozens of hits over several years without getting caught or killed. This guy was a total phantom, making him an unprecedented nightmare for law enforcement. Let's break down his terrifying methods. He belonged to a very small group, less than 5% of robbers, who use an aggressive takeover style. He didn't just quietly slip a note to a single teller, he commanded the entire room. What made him even more unique is that he operated completely alone. His signature move was firing a round into the ceiling the second he walked in to establish absolute dominance. He deliberately avoided the vault because it took too much time, opting for quick cash from the teller drawers instead, always strictly warning them against sneaking in die packs. And his mobility was just staggering, hitting branches across a 1,400-mile area. If we trace his timeline, it shows a really disturbing escalation. He kicks things off in Texas in 1986, instantly proving how violent he was by shooting a bank manager in the abdomen. By 87, he moves to California, hits 4 banks, and officially earns the nickname the Shootist from the FBI. Then, in 1989, he gets reckless. After a die pack explodes on his first run, he literally robs a second bank in Texas on the exact same day. And he evaded capture for so long that by 1991, the 5-year federal statute of limitations actually expired on his earliest robberies. Like I said, a ghost. Cornering a phantom. So how exactly do you catch a ghost? When physical evidence dries up, you have to try and outguess your target. The FBI brought in behavioral profilers from Quantico. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is they discovered a man who treated robbery as a meticulous, highly cautious profession. He strictly targeted branches near highway on-ramps for lightning-fast escapes. He used elaborate theatrical disguises like wigs, fake mustaches, and heavy makeup to hide his features. Profilers noticed he almost exclusively struck on Mondays and Fridays. He was even spotted wearing a back brace beneath his shirt just to support his physical vaults over the teller counters. But eventually, all that media coverage paid off. An anonymous caller phoned in with a super generic name, Johnny Williams, adding that he drove a red 4-door and was heavily armed. It's a small thread, but investigators pulled it. They dug through California DMV records and turned up a Johnny Madison Williams. When they pulled his driver's license photo, bingo. It was a near-perfect match for a police composite sketch drawn by a forensic artist from a rare, undisguised surveillance photo. The Phantom finally had a face and a name. So, the most tense part of all this is how they actually brought him in without triggering a massive shootout. Following a robbery in Washington state, a flagged credit card under one of his aliases alerted the FBI to a local hotel. They needed to confirm it was him without starting a hostage situation, so they had a hotel employee do a fake maintenance check for air filters. And then, the trap was sprung by the most mundane thing ever. Williams called the front desk and politely asked to borrow a typewriter to write a letter. The manager directed him to a quiet side office. A heavily armed FBI team was waiting right there. They arrested this incredibly dangerous man without firing a single shot, literally because he needed to type a letter. During his interrogation, Williams actually asked the FBI how many robberies they had him for. When the agent turned the question around on him, Williams replied, "You wouldn't be here to arrest me and know my name and everything else. You probably have all 56. It's just this chilling mix of absolute arrogance and ultimate resignation. Turns out, he had been meticulously documenting every single one of his own crimes in a briefcase logbook. The inevitable human error. Which brings us right back to the core thesis of our explainer today. We've just analyzed 2 drastically different types of criminals operating decades apart using completely opposite methodologies. Yet if we look at their final outcomes side by side here, their downfalls share the exact same foundation. The stealth masters bypassed impenetrable vaults, but their fatal mistake was leaving dirty dishes in a dishwasher, which led to a bar informant trap and sentences of 15 to 20 years. The Shootist executed 56 flawless, highly volatile armed robberies, but his fatal mistake? using a traceable credit card and stepping out of his hotel room just to borrow a typewriter. That simple act led to a quiet hotel stakeout and a 92-year sentence. For both profiles, it was a simple lapse in everyday human judgment. So, what does this all mean? It leaves us with this one provocative thought. If even the most meticulous, highly trained masterminds inevitably slip up on something as incredibly mundane as washing a plate or borrowing a typewriter, is the perfect crime actually just a myth? It really seems like human infallibility is impossible, no matter how high the stakes get. Anyway, thank you so much for exploring these wild cases with me today in this explainer. I hope you found it as fascinating as I did. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.